All right. Well, we welcome those who are listening online to join us now. My name is Patty Agnew. I'm the pastor here in Park County with the churches of Livingston, Montana, the people of Grace and Holbrook and Pine Creek and Shields Valley welcome you here today. Well, we are in the second chapter of the Gospel of John today, and we are asking, who is Jesus? You could imagine in the beginning of the gospel, John the Baptist has come on the scene and talked about one coming after him, and he baptizes Jesus. And so people are wondering, who is this Jesus? And what difference is he going to make in our lives and in the world? And so in the first chapter of John, as Jesus is starting to become public and got baptized and hanging out with people, he continuously offers an invitation to them, come and see. So come and follow me. Come and see who I am. Come and see what life is like if you follow in my way. And then he says to Nathanael at the end of chapter 1, you believe because I told you I saw you under a fig tree, but you will see greater things than this. And so Jesus enters into his public ministry and introduces who he is. And this is what happens next. This is the Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana of Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Well, woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. And nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for the ceremonial washing. And each one held from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. And then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. And then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much drink. But you have saved the best until now. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. All right, well, at the heart of this story is a miraculous transformation of water into wine at a wedding. So what does that reveal about Jesus and who Jesus is? Well, my grandpa would want to tell you, this is not about wine. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is about the nature of Jesus and what Jesus has to offer us. It's a miracle of abundance. 20 to 30 gallons times 6. That's a lot of wine, even for a big party. It's a miracle of transformation, turning something ordinary like water into something wonderful like wine. It's a miracle of the new possibilities that are available in Jesus. It's a sign to show us the abundant life that Jesus offers us. And so we know this story, right? Jesus and his mother and disciples and many people are at this week-long wedding celebration. And Mary, Jesus' mother, happens to notice the wine is running out. And so she says something to Jesus. And it sounds kind of disrespectful and awkward in our ears, but the experts assure us that it wasn't that way. It was just the two of them interacting. And so, but I do love how Mary asks Jesus, tells Jesus about the wine, then turns around to the servants, do whatever he says. She wants to make sure things are going to work out if they're going to. And so then, sure enough, Jesus instructs the servants to fill up the jugs with water, and it's turned into an abundance of really good wine. And then John tells us this was the first of the signs through which Jesus revealed his glory, and the disciples believe in him. And so we get a glimpse of who Jesus is, of who the God is behind Jesus, the God of abundance, the God that is generous. And so it's a miracle about the quality of life that Jesus offers us. Later in John's gospel, Jesus will say, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly, or to the fullest. Jesus wants us to have a good quality of life. So let me clear up one thing here, though. The abundance that Jesus is offering is not what we would call the prosperity gospel. There are many TV, especially TV preachers out there that preach this prosperity gospel, that if we're faithful, God will bless us. And that's usually understood to be blessings of wealth and prosperity. That if we're faithful, we'll have enough money to do what we want. If we're faithful, we can have a big house. If we're faithful, whatever. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that go with that. And I don't think that's what Jesus is promising here. I don't think Jesus is saying, if you're faithful, if you follow me, then the money in your checking account will miraculously multiply. I wish it was that, but I don't think it is that. I think Jesus is saying that there is a quality of life that you can have that is full of blessing, but it's not about what we have and own. It's about the quality of our life. So I like to say, and I think I've told this story before, but it's worth repeating, that God is a God of unlimited refills. So let me tell you, not all of us are old enough, but many of us are old enough to remember back in the day when you showed up at a restaurant and you ordered your dinner and you ordered a drink of iced tea or soda or whatever, and they brought you one glass. And if you wanted a second glass, you had to pay for it. Remember that? And sorry, Dad, my dad would never pay for the second glass of soda. We didn't go out often. When we did, we often went to the Shakey's. Remember Shakey's Pizza Parlor? They were all over California, and they had really spicy pepperoni pizza that we liked. And when we would go, the treat for us kids was we were allowed to have soda when we went out to eat and have pizza. So my brother and I were always really excited about that. So we sit down, we order our pizza, and the servers, as they always do, bring your drink right away. So here's Mike and I, and we're like elementary school age, right? So now this big glass of soda is put down in front of us, and we start drinking as any kid would. And my parents would always warn us, don't drink it too fast, save it, or you're not gonna have enough to go with your pizza. You're gonna run out. And so we would try as hard as we could to kind of sip away, to ration it out, to try to make it last. And it never did. We never had enough. We were always eating spicy pepperoni pizza without soda by the end of the meal, and it was bad. And we never could get enough self-discipline to make it last. But then a miracle happened. And that miracle was called unlimited free refills. And now that's the era in which we live, when they just come and fill it up, or you go get it filled up yourself. So I would say God is a God of free, unlimited refills, right? There's enough grace for every single day, and we keep getting refills. We don't have to ration it out. We don't have to try to make it last across our lifetime. But God is always present to us and always offering us free refills of grace. And that is the abundance that God offers us. Jesus has come that we might have life and have it abundantly, and that there is enough grace and enough love and enough of everything we need to last our whole lifetime and beyond. We don't have to try to ration it out across our lifetime. So the question then is, how do we get this abundant grace? Do we just sit around and God showers it upon us, or is there something that we need to do? And so I think in this particular story, Jesus' mother, Mary, gives us a clue. She asked for it. She said to Jesus, they're running out of wine. And then she told the servants to do whatever he asked. So I think that there is a time when we need to invite Jesus to act. We need to invite God to be part of it. Not because God just sits back and never does anything unless we ask. But there's something about that conversation, that relationship. Sometimes we just have to notice something and we have to ask. And what's important to notice here is that what I need to learn is that I'm quick to ask God for help. And I'm also quick to have the solution all planned out. Like, oh God, this person needs help and you should do A, B, and C, right? But Mary doesn't do that. Mary doesn't tell him how to deal with the situation. She just points out the need. There's a need. They're running out of wine. It's going to bring shame upon the family. And Jesus, maybe you could do something about that. And then she lets Jesus do whatever Jesus wants to do about that. And that's one thing I need to learn in prayer, that I'm quick to ask for help, but then I need to let God answer the way God's going to answer. And then the second thing about that is she instructed the disciples to do, or the servants to do whatever Jesus said. So sometimes when we bring up a situation to God and we notice a need and we ask for prayer for that situation, then we need to do whatever Jesus asked. So here's my example. When I was married, I did not have a good relationship with my mother-in-law. We just really struggled with each other. And so I prayed all the time, Jesus, help me in this relationship. Help me to love her in a way that's grace-filled and good, and that our relationship could be better. And if I prayed that and then just sat about and did everything the way I always did it, it wasn't going to get better. But if I put into practice the things Jesus tells us to do, like forgiving people over and over when they hurt us, praying for people even when we're mad at them, praying for our enemies, trying to have the fruit of the Spirit as part of my life. If I didn't do those things that Jesus asked me to, then there wasn't very much room for God to work. And so I think to have that abundant life, God gives us the gifts and offers it to us, but there's times we need to ask and times we need to live faithfully the way God calls us to. And then that abundance comes for us. And then I don't want to make the other side of that argument falls apart. So it's not that if you don't ask, God will never be gracious. It's not that if you don't ever do anything, God won't ever do anything. But the flip side is true. When we do ask, when we are faithful, the abundant life will come. And so the question we have for ourselves is, how have you experienced Jesus turning water into wine in your life? When has there been a time that something ordinary, something normal turned into something really abundant? The quality of your life was increased. And so the first thing that came to my mind was our Thursday night hymns and prayers time that we do. And so there's a small group of us who gather on Zoom and we talk about scripture together. We share our lives, we share our prayer requests, we lift each other up, we sing a few hymns. And I'll tell you, sometimes by the time Thursday night rolls around, either number one, I don't feel prepared, like I haven't figured out what we're going to do as I lead it, or number two, I'm just tired. By the time Thursday night rolls around, it's like, oh, I got to get on Zoom again, I'm going to do this, and I just feel tired. But every single time, God blesses us. Every single time, that turns into, from an average Zoom time with people, into something holy, because God shows up and blesses us. So that's one way I experience that. We experience this kind of stuff all the time. The other thing that came to my mind was my drive. So I decided Friday to drive down to Salt Lake City. I was just a little bored, wanted to go for a drive. Now, there was the women's collegiate gymnastics season. I was a gymnast growing up. It's now the women's collegiate gymnastics season. ABC today at 1:00, they're going to show one of the great meets. So Utah has one of the best teams in the nation. Grace McCollum, one of the Olympic gymnasts, is competing on their team. She had an amazing meet. Oklahoma was coming. They also have one of the best teams in the nation. I thought, I'm going to drive down there and go to the meet. So I did. And it was a Friday meet. Most of their meets are Saturday or Sunday. So Friday I could do it. So I drove down. So when I drove down, I queued, which I like to drive. The weather was good. It was all fine. I queued up a bunch of podcasts to listen to on the way down. And it's kind of like it will happen with music. every single one of those podcasts spoke into my life in a really deep way and addressed something I was thinking or wrestling about. What it felt like was Jesus was in that car with me and had a conversation with me the whole way down to help me figure out some stuff that's going on in my life. There's just something about that drive. Like, drives are fine, but that drive was so special because I just heard what I needed to hear through those podcasts and that teaching. And so that was a time for me when I feel like Jesus turned that water of a drive into a wine experience of hanging out with Jesus in my car for 7 hours. So think for yourself of times when something ordinary is transformed into something really good. And that's one of the ways that God blesses us in our lives. The other way to look at that is that where are the empty jars in your life? Where are the places where the wine's running out? And you need to ask Jesus to come make a difference in those places. Because as you do, Jesus will show up. That's where we discover Jesus at our point of need. And so when we can verbalize, when we can recognize, when we can see those places where we need help and we invite Jesus in, that's when and where we experience Jesus. So God, Jesus offers us abundant life. It happens all the time. We just need to have eyes to see it. When we look out the window at just the right time to catch the sunset or the sunrise. When we run into somebody at the grocery store we haven't seen for a while, we're able to catch up with them and we're so glad we saw them. Or maybe we're just minding our business, doing whatever, and we run into a stranger and strike up a conversation and it happens to be a meaningful interaction. There's all kinds of ways that we experience this abundance of God's grace every single day when we have our eyes open to see it. And so the end of that passage that it says, I'm gonna have to find it, sorry. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory. So he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So can't you imagine those disciples years later? Maybe they all ended up at a wedding together and they go, oh, remember that time at that wedding in Cana when Jesus turned that water into wine? Right? So what are the experiences in your life? How have you experienced Jesus that has caused you to believe in Jesus and to follow? It's good to remember those stories. It's good to share those stories. You know, your remember whens. Remember when Jesus showed up and this happened. Remember when we experienced God's grace and abundance. Remember those stories and share them with one another. Well, I want to close with a verse that I come back to over and over and over again that experiences this and kind of turns it into a prayer. Now to God, who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that's at work within us, to him be the glory in the church, in Christ Jesus, throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Amen.